Hello everyone, welcome to Manage Engine Applications Manager webinar series. This particular phase is displayed or divided into four sectors, which is the agenda for today, where we will be seeing how application discovery and dependency mapping can be useful to monitor your in-house applications and discover them, group them together. Now, once it is done, we will see how exactly key metrics in your physical servers as well as virtual servers will play a vital role in terms of monitoring. Third, we will be discussing about fault management with the help of artificial intelligence-based alerting that Applications Manager offers. Lastly, we will be seeing about machine learning enabled analytics, where historical data of the IT infrastructure can be visible. So without further ado, let us further go ahead and see how we can get more out of the application discovery as well as dependency mapping. Now, speaking about discovery, all the IT infrastructure is located in certain IP ranges. Now, it would be a tedious task for all the system admins to go to each and individual resource and add them manually. So in order to overcome these hassles, we have provided the option where the users can discover the resources by various options, by providing an IP range or discovering the virtualized environments or using the CIDR options as well. Now, once everything is filled in this particular place, which we will be seeing in a while on the UI, this is to give you an idea of how exactly it looks like. So once the discovery process is initiated, so we will have something that looks like in the first screen where the IPs will be verified along with the authentication. And once everything is validated, the second image that we have on the screen will give the insights of the various resources that are discovered. Now, once this is done, we will have a better understanding as to why a user has to go with this particular dependency mapping option. Because this will reduce the manual effort to discover all the applications, monitor them, and identify the connections that is established between one server and the other server, and also gives the live status of the number of running applications or devices. And even better, it helps the users identify the downtime on the applications and quickly find the root cause analysis for further troubleshooting. So this is how a dependency map looks like once we have done discovering it. So now let us go into the UI to see how exactly Applications Manager helps you to achieve this. So this is the home page of Applications Manager UI. And as we are speaking, in order to make use of application discovery and dependency mapping, one has to navigate to the admin tab. And the next thing is to click on add or discovery under discovery and data collection. Now there are three different options with which the users can add their resources. One is to identify each and individual resource. Number two is to create a CSV file of the various resources and import them. Lastly, the discovery option, which is what we are going to see right now. So all the user has to do is click on add new, provide a unique display name, followed by creating credentials. Now that the fact that an admin knows the various resources which are available in one set of IP range, be it from a single IP range or be it from multiple subnets. Now, in order to discover, there are a couple of prerequisites that needs to be done. Number one is to ensure that the credentials are created well in advance so that the discovered resource is added as its respective resource monitor, be it a Windows monitor, be it a Linux monitor, be it a SQL database, or be it any application for that matter. Now, if there's something that is not created well in advance in terms of creating a credential, the users can make use of add new credential or show all existing credentials, which is the case right now. Now, let me go ahead and create a new credential to give you an idea of how exactly it looks like. Let me choose a WMI mode of monitoring, where I will be using the Windows authentication for discovering my Windows resources. So I will be giving a unique display name followed by the domain name and the username and the password, and save this. Now, the next thing in terms of discovery is to provide the IP range. Now, let me give an IP range which is 10.0.1.1 to 10.0.1.10. Now, this is one subnet. Now, what if I have a requirement to discover resources from a different subnet? This icon lets the users to discover more resources from the additional subnets. So I can give a different subnet like 198.168.1.1 to 1.10. So altogether, I would be looking for 20 different IP ranges to discover the resources which are lying in my IT infrastructure. Now, the next thing that we have to do is to configure the ports. It is not essential that all the applications have to be discovered. So some might have a requirement of monitoring servers, some might have a requirement of monitoring applications or DB. So the users can customize the respective ports that are needed to be discovered from this particular area, where if a user feels that SSH or Telnet is not needed, that can be disabled. And furthermore, we have support for various range of applications as well as databases, with which the user can enable or disable the ports and proceed further to discover and add. Now, the key difference between discover and add is the customization that the user can do in terms of dependency mapping or removing resources which might not be essential. So let me go ahead and click on the option discover. Now, as we see, this takes a little while for the IP addresses to be verified, and at the same time, it also gives the user the option to check for the number of IPs, number of devices that are discovered. So since this takes a while, I have created a discovery or a dependency mapping well in advance. So let me show that to you how exactly it looks like in real time once the discovery is done. Now let me choose this particular option, which is monitor group. So this is where we will have all the discovered applications from this particular resource be available. So as we see, this is a dependency mapping where we have all the applications for which the credentials that are provided, the ports that have been enabled are discovered, and its respective information, which is the respective monitors that have connection with the parent group or the parent monitors, are being inline and being displayed. Now, speaking of the benefits of the dependency mapping, here we have some monitors which are red in state, which are green in state. So for me to identify what exactly the behavior is. So as soon as I hover my mouse onto one of these monitors, it says that the resource for one particular application or a service is down because it is not available. This is how you can easily identify your applications, its current performance, with the help of the dependency mapping, just with the overview. Now moving further, now that we have all the applications discovered, let us go ahead and see the business critical metrics in the virtual server environment as well as the physical server environment. Now, speaking about key parameters that needs to be addressed, that needs to be monitored constantly in any server monitoring, be it physical or virtual, is the CPU as well as the memory spikes. So this is highly critical for all the users to have an insight, have a keen eye on how exactly the compute resources are being used. So if there is a sudden CPU spike or an intermittent memory spike, this might have performance issues on the server. Now, the system administrators cannot go to each and individual server to identify why this has been happening. So in order to overcome these things, Applications Manager offers the users the options where users can monitor business critical metrics. Like speaking about some of the key metrics on a physical as well as a virtual server monitoring is the CPU, memory, disk utilization, the network traffic, the processes as well as the services, depending on the monitoring infrastructure, be it Linux or Windows. And had it been a Linux, you can monitor the cron jobs. And for physical servers, we have the option to monitor the hardware and pretty much more. Now, keeping all these business metrics intact, Applications Manager has the ability to customize certain threshold levels to each and individual attribute that is being monitored. In addition to certain key metrics, there are additional metrics as well, like the event logs, where the users can create significant rules for multiple event types, like a system failure, or maybe a login failure, maybe a DNS failure, or an authentication failure, be it anything. The users have the leverage to create thresholds and get notified. Now, speaking about the physical hardware infrastructure, so there are some key issues while monitoring the servers. Now, these issues are hardware issues because owing to extreme temperatures or a failure in the SMPS or maybe a CPU cooling fan, this might impact the business applications that reside well within that server. Now, in order to keep track of all these things, the server monitoring has a solution where everything can be addressed in a single place. Now, let us go to the UI to see how exactly the server monitoring as well as the virtualized monitoring can be done. So we are at the monitors tab right now. And since Applications Manager is an agentless monitoring tool, it has support for more than 150 applications. Now that we are pretty much focused on server as well as virtual environment, let me quickly take you around the various virtualized options that Applications Manager offers, which is monitoring containers, Dockers, Kubernetes, as well as its virtual machines, Oracle VMs, Citrix Pumps, Hyper-V or vCenter, and many more. So let me give you an example of a specific vCenter to let you know how exactly monitoring looks like. So we have something over here where we can see the various virtual machines that are available in this particular vCenter that is discovered via an ESX. So over here we have the snapshot of the CPU as well as the memory utilization. Along with it, it also displays the disk as well as the network usage. Now further below, we have the availability to monitor all the existing VMs that are available in a single ESX. Now going to the monitoring environment of a single VM, as we have seen in the earlier slides, how essential it is to monitor the CPU or the memory spikes. We have each and individual options that is split up across the memory, where for a virtual server, it's not just a standard memory utilization like a swap memory utilization. So on the other hand, in the virtualized environments, we have the balloon memory, the active memory, the shared memory across the VMs as well as ESX. Everything can be monitored from a single window pane, and the users can also customize thresholds for each and individual attribute that is displayed. Now, depending on the operating system, be it Linux or Windows or CentOS, the users have the ability to monitor various options like the services, the processes individually. Now, on the contrary, speaking about a physical Windows server or a physical server for that matter, we have all the server related information in a single window pane where we have the CPU, the memory, as well as the disk utilization. Now, this brings a question in many system administrators to see how exactly they can find the spikes that are seen or that could have an impact on the memory utilization. So creating a threshold and associating it for the CPU or the memory utilization will send an email alert that has the complete history of all the processes that are available, which is causing high utilization, which is causing the performance impact on the physical server or the virtual server. Now, the split up of each and individual performance metrics is so granular, where we have the CPU cores available for monitoring, which is this particular CPU that we are seeing has 16 cores. So the utilization across all these cores is identified graphically, and at the same time, we have a table that displays the input output time, the waits time, the CPU utilization across all the different cores that are available, which is what we have on the screen right now. Now, in addition to this, speaking about other business critical metrics is the disk utilization. So Applications Manager, once a monitor is added, helps the users identify all the disks without the users having to add these disks manually, be it a mount point or be it an existing drive. The users have the option to monitor everything in a single place. Now, in addition to this, the other critical metrics include the hardware configuration. So as we see, monitoring the physical server as well as virtual server is as important as monitoring the hardware metrics as well. Now, this particular server monitor helps the administrators identify the current status of the CPU span, the temperature of various sensors, the power, if in case that is available, the processor information, the memory related status, and many more. Also the physical chassis details as well. So this is how extensive the server monitoring helps the users capture everything in a single view. Now, in addition to all these that we have seen, you can also monitor the services as well as the processes right at the monitor place, where the user can add a new service by clicking on add new service, which pops up all the services that are available, and the user can go ahead and add a single service or maybe multiple services. Now let us go back to the UI to see a little more about configuring thresholds and getting notified. So now that we have created monitors with the help of the discovery mapping and have had a quick look at one of the server monitor, the next important thing is to get notified on various avenues, which is once the monitoring is in place, it will not alert you unless there is an issue. So what the user has to do is to make use of customizable thresholds. Now, speaking about custom thresholds, Applications Manager offers multiple ways. So what we have over here is a traditional approach, which is creating customizable threshold values for three different severity levels, ranging from critical, warning, and clear. On the other hand, we also have other options, which is with the help of machine learning, which uses a robust robust algorithm that identifies how exactly the utilization is, what exactly the trends are, when exactly a spike has been seen. Was this spike an intermittent spike? So capturing all this data with the help of machine learning, if in case there is any discrepancy that is found in terms of monitoring a CPU or a memory utilization, for example, Applications Manager will change the status of the monitor from green to red. Now, keeping these options aside, we also have anomaly profiles with dynamic baselines where users can customize and compare values of how exactly it has been functioning in the last 1 week or last 2 weeks or maybe in a quarter, and then assign a specific baseline values, be it an upper limit or be it a lower limit. So these are pretty much the various options with which you can get multiple ways to get notified in terms of any issues that is seen on your server monitoring. Now, once we have everything set, the next thing is to receive notifications. So usually once the thresholds are configured, the status of the monitor changes, but the users might not be aware of the various issues that is being happening. So in order to get notified, Applications Manager offers multiple ways of troubleshooting or diagnosing the issues. So it is done with the help of two different actions, which is automated actions as well as corrective actions. So we will be seeing a little more about the actions in just a while. But before that, a little more into identifying the root cause analysis. Now that we have been seeing certain spikes, for example, or certain issues on one particular server that is a business critical server. So to identify how exactly this has been faring, the alarms history, which Applications Manager offers, gives the users complete insight into how exactly and when exactly, for how often these changes are available. Now, let me take you to the UI to show you multiple ways of configuring thresholds, associating actions, the automated as well as corrective actions, and in-depth options of how to identify root cause analysis. So we are in the UI right now, and let me take you to the admin tab to give you the options to configure alarms. So there are multiple ways. One is to create the configure alarms option over here. This will give the user more options, which is configuring a threshold for a single monitor, for a group of monitors where you can segregate your production environments, your sandboxes, or your lab environments, or the monitor type. which is by far the most recommended option if there are no split environments. This will help the users create a single threshold value for multiple options, for multiple monitors of the same category. So in this case, I chose Windows 10. Now, as we see, we have an option over here where the users can customize for physical memory utilization or the total disk space utilization. Now, let me give you an example of how exactly memory utilization can be configured. So as soon as I click on Associate, we have the options where we can create a new threshold profile where the custom values can be provided. So let me just give an example of utilization name. This is the memory utilization. The users can set values. If it is greater than 90, it has to be critical. If it is equal to or less than 85 or less than 90, it has to be in a warning state. And if it is less than 80, that means your CPU is functioning absolutely fine. So this is how you can set the values for multiple monitor types. Now, in addition to this, you can also make use of the machine learning, which uses the algorithm to capture data and predicts the utilization and gives the users an information to let them know when exactly a spike or when exactly an issue has occurred on the monitoring infrastructure. So these are two ways. Now let me also show you the other way where you can create threshold profiles. So under the admin tab, we have something called thresholds and anomalies, where the users can create new threshold options or new anomaly profiles, where a dynamic baseline values can be created with the help of the trends that has been seen in the previous weeks or the last 2 weeks or maybe one set time interval. So this is where the users can customize the value and associate them from the same place where we have seen just a while ago in terms of customizing thresholds and associate using the standard approach as well as the machine learning approach. Now, once everything is created, now let us assume that we have a threshold created for a Windows server or a group of servers. The next step is to create actions. So speaking about actions, there are multiple ways. What we have over here is an email action, an SMS action, or a ticket action, which will send notifications, which is an automated action that lets you know that one of your servers, one of your services, or the memory or the CPU utilization is well beyond the set threshold levels. Now, these are some of the options with which users can get notified. Now, if there is some custom program that needs to be run, so we also have the option of creating an execute program action, which means you can make use of a shell script or a batch file and point its exact path. And this can be associated to the monitor, post which whenever the monitor polls, this particular action executes and the relevant information, which means if the execution of this particular script or a batch file is successful or was it a failure, will also be displayed on the monitor page. Now, in addition to this, right in the beginning, when we were discussing about a server monitor, we have seen monitoring of services as well as processes. Now, speaking about this or talking about a VM, there are multiple options, which is a VM action or a Windows service action, which means if the user is not in a position, does not have access to the VMs to start or stop a VM, or maybe start or stop or restart a service. So that would be a business critical issue because of the prolonged downtime. Now, in order to avoid such hassle, there is one particular option, which is either a Windows service action or maybe a VM action. Let me show you how efficiently you can automate tasks without any manual intervention. So over here, we have chosen a VM task, which is start or stop or restart a virtual machine. So the users can choose between the available options. So let me choose a VMware right now. And the next thing is to choose the respective VMs. Is it a specific virtual machine or is it all the virtual machines? So as we see, we have all the VMs that are present under a single vCenter or an ESX can be identified, and the respective options can also be customized over here. Now let me just give this a name and create an action. There we go. So we have a VM action, which means if this particular VM is in a stop state, Applications Manager, whenever it polls, it checks if this VM is in stop or a running state, and if it is in the latter, it automatically starts the VM, ensuring the downtime is minimized. Now that we have seen a little about configuring thresholds, receiving notifications, now let us also go ahead and see how exactly the alert history looks like. So we have a dedicated tab called Alarms, where the complete history of each and individual monitor will be seen, where it has certain limitations where the last 50 alarms can be displayed. So speaking of alarms, let me choose one particular monitor, which is a virtual machine. Now, as we see, we have two options over here, the health history as well as the availability history. Health determines the various attributes, be it an individual CPU, disk, memory, unavailability, or the threshold that is being violated. So all these factors is identified under the health of the monitor, where we can see for how long this has been in the same state. Now, similarly, the availability history lets us know when exactly or what exactly the last known state of a VM is. Now, since the root cause analysis is also displayed over here, which states that the resource is down because the VM is in a paused state. Now, there are certain additional options as well, because every IT organization will have to undergo certain upgrades or patching. Now, if there is some downtime that has been some known downtime that has been seen, the administrators can add an annotation stating or providing a custom message that this is a valid downtime. So this means anyone who is monitoring, or the system administrators, or the or any administrators have the options to understand that this particular downtime is a valid and it need not be considered for a uh, majority of an issue. So this is how extensive monitoring or capturing thresholds or identifying root cause analysis of all these issues put together in a single window pane. Now moving further, let's go to the UI, let's go to the presentation to see how exactly machine learning in Applications Manager helps the users identify detailed analytics and how can this be done. So there are multiple options where the users can see the complete details about the compute resources utilization with the help of a capacity planning as well as forecasting reports. Now, what exactly this does is this will give the users to see if the resources that are offered in their IT infrastructure is sufficient, or there needs to be more resources that needs to be included or added for monitoring or for the consumption of various applications. So keeping this in mind, Applications Manager offers more than 250 plus report types, where we will be extensively looking at customizing or creating capacity planning reports to see the oversized or undersized servers or maybe idle servers. On the other hand, we also have a forecasting report which will predict the utilization of various factors like the disk usage or the memory spikes of the servers or databases or anything for that matter under the supported classification. In addition to this, we will also be discussing about how exactly the rules can be customized under each and individual report type. And what we have over here is a screenshot that gives the users an example of how the forecast utilization looks like. So in addition to the reports, there are constant questions from the users to see who has made the changes. So there are organizations where people import users from Active Directory so that multiple people will be working on Applications Manager with their dedicated resources. Now, if there is any change that has been made, be it a threshold that is removed, or be it a monitor that is deleted, or be it a network discovery that was done. So the super administrator can easily identify all these things in a single window pane with the help of the auditing feature that we will be seeing right in a moment on the UI. So for the user to access the advanced analytics or the machine learning reports, we have the reports tab, which will exclusively give the option to pick reports based on their classification. Now, over here, we have dedicated report types for servers where we can see the individual utilization of various metrics or a virtualized reports. And speaking about capacity planning, as we rightly see, this is classified only for physical as well as virtual servers. And these are classified into three different types, which is undersized servers, which means applications that are lying in one particular physical server or a virtual server is using much of its utilization. Now, on the other hand, the oversized servers is where applications are not even using half of what the compute resource is. Idle servers, as the name states, there is not much utilization. So with the help of these reports, the users can customize values and ensure that their resources are equally optimized across all these three different variants, be it oversized, undersized, or idle servers. Now on the screen, what we have is a capacity planning report where the users can customize or change the diagnostic settings to ensure what exactly defines an oversized server or an undersized server. So setting the rules over here will give the users a comprehensive idea of how exactly the total utilization of their compute resources are being used. Now that this is saved, let me just reopen it to see if we find any discrepancy in the utilization. Let me just change the report type. Yes. So as we see, the report has been right now updated, which is looking at the memory utilization of this particular Windows server, it is not even close to 10%. I mean, it is 0% for most of the time, which is less than 60%, which means this is absolutely fine. On the other hand, the CPU utilization has a greater spike. So this is where these report types come in handy to ensure the resources are equally optimized. Now, furthermore, we have the forecasting report. So forecast report has the granularity to identify when exactly the spikes can happen. So with the help of the machine learning that we have enabled, so this will compare the values for the last 30 days or maybe last 3 months, and this will predict how exactly the utilization is going to be over a series of various time frames, be it 1 month, be it 1 year, or maybe 2 years. You can customize the interval, and right now I chose 9 months as the custom time interval. So as we scroll further down, we are looking at all the disks that are available in the server monitoring. Now, if I choose one particular disk monitoring over here, we will be able to determine what exactly the spikes are like. So if I take the disk utilization D, so we will see the complete history where the average utilization has been 34% in the last 3 months. And this is what the actual data is being displayed over here. And even better, it identifies how exactly it has been in the last 3 months. And with the help of the machine learning, it predicts the usage, the further usage to let the users know when exactly they would be a 90% utilization or when exactly it will reach 100% utilization. So everything can be captured with the help of the forecasting reports, which we see right now. Now, this is not only limited to servers, this is limited to various other applications as well. So if I, for example, if I choose the utilization of a database, which is the various databases that are available, so we see there could be different trends that are available in the utilization metrics. So this is how the historical data can be captured, and also at the same time, the future trends can also be predicted. Now, the next thing that we have is the auditing feature. So under the admin tab, under tools, we have something called audit logs. So there are as many as 115 actions which has happened in the last few days. So the users or the super administrator can customize which actions needs to be checked or which actions needs to be audited or for how long this has to be done. So the users can choose between 1 day, 10 days, or maybe 30 days based on the data retention period and check when exactly there has been various changes that are seen. Now, as we see, right in the beginning, I have performed or initiated a network discovery to discover monitors to create a dependency mapping. So that is what we have identified. And immediately I tried canceling this discovery. So any action that is being performed on Applications Manager is being tracked so that this will give the super administrator a good insight on the various changes that are being done. And these changes can also be audited to see if any such change that has been done is an essential change, or if that is something that was accidentally done. So all these reports can be exported as a PDF or a CSV or into an Excel file. So this is pretty much what the auditing feature is all about. So with this, let me give you a quick recap as to what we have seen so far. So in the beginning, we have seen the various discovery options, which is a single discovery option, a bulk import, and the application discovery and the dependency mapping that creates a monitor group or a business view to easily detect the issues that are seen on your existing discovered resources. Followed by, we have seen the key metrics and how to configure thresholds using the various options, be it a standard approach or using an anomaly profile, or maybe with the help of automatic detection that is done with the help of machine learning on your physical as well as virtual servers for various parameters. Lastly, we have seen the complete reports for identifying how exactly the utilization of various metrics is going to be over a series of various time frames, and at the same time identifying how exactly the compute resources are being utilized on multiple grounds like oversized, undersized on idle servers. So this is pretty much what we have in this server. With this, um, I thank you all for joining this webinar. Hope it was informative, and you can, as said, you can reach out to us anytime to have your queries answered.